Hi mamas, my name is Megan Norkis and welcome to Our Virtual Village. Starting this podcast was inspired by a local mom group that I went to during my pregnancy and postpartum journey. Connecting with and relating to other moms was a major key for me as I was navigating all the new things that come with being a new mom. So my goal with this podcast is to bring those conversations and stories from my community to a virtual platform, and that's gonna bless moms everywhere. I'm so excited. My hope is that as you listen to this episode, you can hear from and learn about the common struggles that other moms are having in the trenches of motherhood with you, and feel encouraged because you're not momming alone. We are all winging it at this mom thing, and we can all learn from and help each other. So we're excited to have you as part of our village, and let's dive into the conversation. Okay, well, we're doing another episode of Our Virtual Village, and I'm so excited to have Virginia here, another Homebirth Midwife. I feel so spoiled to have all these amazing midwives to come record, and I get to capture all of your knowledge, so thank you so much for your time this morning.
Of course, I'm feeling very special that you invited me.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's going to be a whole lot of fun because you're actually a newer midwife, you know.
Yes.
The first time I met you were actually a student midwife with Modern Midwives, and then you just totally became part of the team. So I feel like I've known you now throughout both my pregnancies and stuff, which is so cool. But yeah, I guess just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are. Are you from Jacksonville? What inspired you to become a midwife? Catch us up to speed.
Okay, so I'm from here in Neptune Beach, a little closer. Born here in Neptune, but not particularly raised. So I moved to Illinois when I was like 8, lived there for like 15 years, went to college. And then I majored in like health sciences. So I knew I wanted to be in healthcare, knew that was something I wanted to do, but senior year rolls around and I'm like, what am I going to do next? I have no idea. My oldest sister, was pregnant with her second baby. I was going to be like back home for the summer when she was going to deliver. So I was obviously planning on being at her birth. At the time, I really didn't know anything, honestly, about birth at all. Like really? I was like, 21, 22, whatever.
So you just kind of wanted to be there just to support her?
Yeah, just to support her.
Yeah.
She had her first birth actually in Germany with a midwife in a birth center. So I knew like she was doing it at a hospital. She had a, complicated first birth. Like the birth itself was great. Her postpartum, had a hemorrhage. So I know me and my family at the time were like a little bit nervous for her, like doing it at a hospital. Like I said, I wasn't very educated on birth at the time. But I went with her to like some appointments, again, at a birth center here in Jacksonville. And then, birth rolled around that day. She was in labor. I was there and I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Like
cool.
Yeah. And just so new for me. And so, I remember being there and like holding her foot when she was pushing and just like, it really just like changed my whole perspective on, that side of like women's health. So from there, I just like read a couple books, watched some like documentaries. I remember The Business of Being Born was one that I watched and I was like, what?
It like opens up a whole nother like universe for you.
Yeah. And so from there I finished college and applied for midwifery school, and here we are. It's kind of crazy that it like that one moment, a big moment, but
for sure
really changed like my whole path.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's what I was gonna ask. Like, how involved were you with her birth? Like, if you were just kind of observing, or you were kind of like ready to dive right in and like be a part of it?
Kind of just observing. I knew I like wanted to like be in it and like do as much as I could as just like her sister that was attending
for sure.
But of course it was her second baby too, so faster birth, not super long, but she let me kind of like be right there in the moment.
So cool. Did she have a doula as well?
She didn't.
So you're the doula. Boom.
Yeah, me. So it was like me and my mom and my sister and one of our aunts who was at like all of our births. She was there, and then of course her husband. So she had like, I guess, a couple doulas around her.
I love it. Which is really how it should be. Like women around you, supporting you. Yeah. It's kind of crazy, and I've talked about this in other episodes, but like how isolating birth is really in America these days. It's like
totally.
Your husband may be there, but even if you do a childbirth education class or something, it's like a man is kind of like, whoa, what's happening?
Yeah.
You know, they only have so many instincts, whereas like a woman has the instincts to like brush your hair, hold your hand, grab you a wet washcloth. Like, you know, it's like you could, for some reason, it just like comes so much more natural.
Yeah.
So like, of course and I talked about this with Olivia in one of the first episodes, my doula, and she is like, the husband is there because he knows you, and like, you know, he would know what the wife needs and what his partner needs, but a doula knows birth really well, and like a woman who has walked through it, you know, just kind of knows things in a different way. So it's really cool to have women around. That's how it should be. That's how it was for hundreds and thousands of years.
Definitely should be surrounded by women. 100%.
So cool. I love that. That's super special. And how much older is your sister than you?
My oldest sister is 5 years older than me.
Okay, so y'all are all kind of close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So my little sister, I'm 10 years older than her.
Oh wow.
Okay. And so I was like, well, I think I was like 9.5 or almost 10 when she was born, and my mom told me she wanted to let me in the room. I don't know why that was like on my mom's heart, but it like, I think it kind of opened the door in a really like early, obviously, like stage of my life of just being open to like knowing what happens in childbirth, because again, it is so like isolating, and like, you know, it's usually in a hospital, so there's like not really a place for children and stuff. And so even though that, like, I'll have to ask my mom, like, what made you I think because I was just so obsessed with the fact that I was getting a little sister that she just like wanted to include me. I'm gonna have to ask her about that when I see her. But so I was in the room, and that just kind of made me at least like curious about birth and like more open to it, and like kind of like, you know, just familiar, I guess, with it. And so part of what I feel like my assignment is that God has given me is to allow my sister into my birth space. So even though like my first birth was a little crazy, took some wild pivots and stuff, my sister was there and got to witness that. And it's like, I think making that conversation normal, and like her not hearing about it and being like, wow, that must have been scary. Like she was here helping me walk through it. She was helping me get towels, or, you know, just the little things, like she was involved. And, you know, birth can get kind of wild, you know, and then take some wild twists and turns. So I think even making that normal is important. And
so the unpredictability.
So this time I'm hoping to like redeem it for her so she's not terrified or something. But yeah, seeing a home birth, hopefully will do the same that it did for you and your sister.
I feel that too, like a big thing when I started, because I was so just like uneducated to birth before I, you know, was able to witness my own sister's birth. I really wanted to like literally introduce it to as many people as possible. I'm like, I want every single person out there, every single woman, like, you know, pregnant person, everyone to, you know, just know like that there are other options, that birth can be different than like what we grow up seeing it as, like in the hospital one way, you know, like, because there are so many other ways that you can go. You can go to a birth center, you can choose your midwives, have a doula, you know, have all these things in the hospital. So that's a big thing that I like want to do as a midwife, is just educate people and just like spread it as far and wide as I can. There
is options, you know, because a lot of people, they go to the doctor and it's kind of like, okay, what they tell me to do, I'm going to do, which is, you know, great to take medical advice. Of course, I'm not saying don't do that, but, you know, just knowing like you also have a say, and maybe if they don't give you your options, know that you can ask questions and choose other things. So that's something I've become much more passionate about over time as well. But what's been kind of like the most exciting or surprising thing it's been like about a year, right? That you've been
almost like a year and a half.
Okay, cool. I'm like, my timelines are all messed up. I'm like,
I keep forgetting we're in July, and I'm like, oh wait,
literally. So what's been the most like exciting or surprising thing about your journey so far? You're on your own. You're not a student. Tell me about that.
Exciting, honestly, just like every single time I'm at a birth and like witness that moment, it shocks me every time how just like it never gets old.
Are you a crier? Do you like cry every time?
I do sometimes. Definitely like the first couple births I ever attended.
Like sobbing in the corner.
I literally was like, oh my gosh, I'm this student who's just like crying, and they're like, what are you doing? You're just observing. Like, I don't cry as much now, but there definitely are some births that really get me. Like I had one recently. It was a first time mom. She had like her sister's there, one of her nieces was there, and it just like reminded me like of my own family and like how I want to have like because my two nieces are very interested in birth. But I want to have them there, so that like witnessing that, I definitely was like wiping some tears away at that moment.
So precious.
But birth itself is just always very exciting. I just feel like the moment when, you know, someone has their baby and just like finally holds it and is like, oh my gosh, has that like I did it kind of like feeling. it's just like seriously so transformative, and like
for sure
it's like an awakening, I feel like, for women. So it's really, really cool to like be there for that. And
I would say it's probably like palpable, like in the room. You're just like,
you
oh
can
my
feel
gosh, it's
it.
happening. Like I feel like I'm about to cry. I'm too pregnant for this conversation. It's like I'm actually about to walk in my 3rd trimester, so it's kind of like crazy. And I feel, like I said in the beginning, like kind of spoiled, because I think such a underrated important part of preparing for birth is like talking about it and like picturing it and like listening to birth stories and stuff. So like almost every single week of my pregnancy I've been recording these episodes. I'm like, this is the best preparation ever.
That is really great.
So it is. I'm like totally emotional. So anyways,
A+ from your midwife.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So how did you get connected with Modern Midwives? Like they're the best ever. And so what a blessing.
I know. I feel so lucky. I literally tell them all the time. I'm like, thank you so much. I feel so grateful to be where I'm at, like with you guys. I met them at one of their like office, like meet and greets, like open house kind of things. And yeah, I remember getting there kind of towards the end, which worked out because I was able to like stay and like chat afterwards. And we just instantly connected with each other. It just felt like it was meant to be, meeting them there. I remember one of the things that we all thought was so like exciting and funny was that we were all Geminis, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is like perfect. Like we're literally, this was like meant to happen.
On the same vibe.
Right. Yes. We were vibing. And I remember we like went to lunch probably a couple months later. I don't think either of them were technically like preceptors at the time. So we were kind of like waiting until, they could like officially take me on as a student. But yeah, we were kind of like all on the same page. I remember them being like, we actually want you to be like our first student ever. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like exactly what I was hoping for.
So cool.
So I got to start with them. They were my first like home birth practice experience. I had been at 2 different birth centers like leading up to that point. So I had done a little bit of home birth, but not like a full home birth practice, which I feel like is obviously like a little bit different.
For sure.
The way they practice and, you know, how like your actual office and everything is set up. So that was exciting to get to do that. And I was excited to
see behind the curtain.
Yeah. See what that's like and just see them, you know, practice.
For sure.
I'd seen like a lot of them on Instagram, and I already kind of like knew that like I liked what they were doing.
Yeah, they come very highly recommended. Everyone's like, I want to have more babies just so I can, you know, go to Modern Midwives. I was actually just thinking about that. I'm like, I can really relate, like I, you know, because I'm obviously pregnant right now, but I was thinking, and then when I'm pregnant again, I get to walk with them through it again. Like it really just makes the whole process so much more fun knowing you get to like hang out with your friends all the time.
Yeah, it is fun, especially when we have like people who come back and get to, you know, have multiple babies with them. It's awesome.
So cool.
But yeah, I was a student with them for like my final year of midwifery. So when I was doing like managements, so where we're kind of like in the midwife role, but obviously with like a midwife overseeing us. And it was definitely changed a lot of like how I now practice. Because like in birth centers, obviously you're with a midwife and you're still doing like the whole out of hospital experience, but a little bit more hands-on in some ways, and just the overall way you practice is a little bit different. Right. And so getting to go with them and like seeing them just some births like not touch, you know, anything, just be there like watching and guiding, was really cool. And they've definitely like shaped me into, you know, the midwife that I am today.
It's so special. Yeah,
it's really special. And I just love them so much. They're the best. And they, thank goodness, wanted to keep me on the team. And when I graduated, wanted to like bring me on as a midwife, which again, so blessed, because I can't imagine like being anywhere else. Like I feel like I've gotten into like the literal best possible, you know, like practice that I could have ever been in, and
which is so important. It really is probably pretty crazy though, like who you train under and like how that all unfolds shapes you, and then now like the job you get, because I've talked to midwives who, you know, work with a certain group of midwives or at a birth center that they hated it first, and then you know, different things. So
they also are really big on like work-life balance. Like they
super important,
want us to all have like time off call and time where we can just like shut our phones off, and which it's different when you're a student, of course, you're like trying to go to all the things. But I remember the first like year that I was attending births, I really was just like constantly like I would go to a birth and go right to another one, you know, back to back to back. And so now like for a while I was like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself
Is this my
into?
life?
Like, this is going to be my life forever. But then when I started with them, I was like, oh my gosh, like midwifery can be done totally different. And I'm grateful to be in, the practice that practices that way, because I can go and like visit my family and, have time to myself, which is really awesome. And we also, I feel like all like back each other up, and, like if one person's at a birth, the other one will go to clinic that day. And it's just like, they've really figured it out, and
so cool.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Such a blessing. And it comes across, I would just let on like the patient side of things, it comes across that way. Like y'all all feel so like comfortable and confident in like what you're doing, and not burnt out or stressed or anything. Like it really makes a huge difference. We really want people to have like a well-rested midwife.
Yeah. That's like one of our goals.
Super important. Yeah. Clear-headed and everything. Definitely. That's awesome. And when we were chatting about like some things that are important to like as a midwife when you're working with your patients, you said you love to like remind clients to trust their bodies. So like what does that look like as you walk through pregnancy with them, but then also in the labor process? Because that's kind of like different, in ways. There's different aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot in pregnancy, obviously people, especially like if it's your first baby or first like out of hospital, or if you're just experiencing something you hadn't before, you obviously are going to have questions about it and not know like, is this normal? Is this not? And a lot of the times what I tell people is just like, listen to what your body is telling you. Like your baby and your body are going to let you know, like if they don't like what you're doing, like if your exercising is a little bit too much, like you're going to feel the effects from that. Yeah. A big question people always ask in like appointments is like, can I sleep on my back? And I'm like, well, how do you feel when you're laying on your back? Yeah. Like, is it harder to breathe? Are you feeling like, like things are getting compressed? 'Cause sometimes for some people, the back is the absolute worst place to be. They hate it. It feels terrible. Their baby will start kicking them all crazy. And that's like your body just letting you know, like, that's not a good position for us. And I feel like that translates into a lot of different things throughout pregnancy, and then also in birth, a big thing that I'll talk with patients about, especially like if people have any like doubt or fear or just, getting closer and just getting nervous, which is totally normal. I love to just remind them like, your body was made for this. Right. Trust the process of birth. And that's like what we do too, like in practice, like we really want to just like follow what your body's doing, listen to how like things are progressing for you. Obviously each birth is going to be a little bit different. But we like to follow like what our patients are doing and what they're telling us. Like if someone says, I'm feeling that urge and we haven't checked it, I'm like, follow that. If you feel like you need to push, you can definitely do that. And most of the time they're ready to push your baby out. Yeah. So like, I feel like just really ingraining that into people's minds that like, you can trust what you're feeling. Right. And like what you're feeling is, usually right. And same thing goes with like moving into different positions and stuff and just following along, what feels right.
So good. Yeah. I'm the type of person, especially when I'm pregnant, that I like to do things right.
Yeah.
And like I have all my checklists and I want to do things the way, even I was looking back like over different papers I had from like my first pregnancy that like I'd got when I was like a brand new mom, new patient and all of that. And I was about to message y'all in our like group messaging app and be like, wait, is this okay this pregnancy? Like, am I doing this right? Should I start drinking more tea at this point? You know, like all these different things that come up. And I think this time I'm trying my best. It's hard, but to be more like intuitively led, you know, like I used to be super obsessed with making sure I'm getting at least 100 grams of protein and stuff. This pregnancy, I've had a lot of like meat aversions and stuff. And I'm like, even though obviously I'm like prioritizing protein, like if all I can choke down is some bone broth or something, like I'm going to prioritize it. Yeah. But if like chicken literally makes me want to throw up, I'm just not going to do it. Right. Like I'm just not going to force myself something that like, maybe just doesn't feel right. But it's like kind of that fine line of like, well, you got to make sure you're doing what you need for your baby, but also just trying to prioritize how I'm feeling and what feels right to me and stuff. So it is kind of a tough balance, but it also ebbs and flows. Like I'm a weirdo. I actually do totally sleep on my back when I'm not pregnant. I have a lot of like back and neck issues. So like really
I sleep on my back.
Okay. Everybody else
in like a coffin.
Me too. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now I don't feel as weird, but yeah, I just feel like my back is in like the best position. So I'm not like sleeping all crazy and it doesn't hurt my muscles as much. And so some nights that feels great. Other nights, maybe it's probably the baby's position or something just on that random day. Yeah. It's just not right. And I have to sleep on my side So I think that's really important for moms to know. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what to do.
For sure.
And I forget which episode we talked about this, but I think because we live in such a fast-paced environment in like America and just like the Western world, I feel like it's hard to sometimes listen to your body because there's so much noise.
Hearing so many different
all
things.
the time. And even just like being on social media all the time or having the TV on, like, or just advertisements everywhere. Like, we're always thinking about 10 million things. So I think prioritizing that like quiet space of listening to your body and like unplugging, like I'm really passionate about turning my phone on airplane mode at the end of the night and stuff, and just like feeling, you know, just being, you know, I think that's really important for moms. Like, you're going through one of the most intense changes of your life.
Yeah.
Whether it's your first baby or your fifth, like your body's
Absolutely.
changing and morphing all the time. You have hormones changing and stuff. So just like listening to what that is and what you need this time around. That's super cool. So what are maybe like some of the most common fears or concerns you hear from your client? How do you help them like work through some of that, especially in the home birth setting? I'm sure like a lot of doubts and fears and stuff come up.
For sure. It's definitely hard. And especially if someone, you know, has either had a hospital birth or is kind of like taking, because like we have some people who come in and they've like always known they wanted to go that route, whereas we have some who come in and they're like, this is them like kind of taking a leap, trying something different, or something that maybe they're not 100% like totally comfortable yet being like in that different kind of space. So I feel like a lot of fear just comes from like what we hear, what we see like on social media, and just like growing up, and you know, home birth isn't like the total norm, you know, for everybody. So I feel like a lot of fear is just like, are you guys like, what do you guys bring with you? Like, what are you able to do? Like,
I totally asked that.
Yeah. I feel like that's a very standard, like, consultation question is like, how do you handle these things at home in that setting? So it really is just a lot of like talking through it with people, reminding them like, you know, and for like outsiders, like, midwives are medical professionals. We bring all these things with us, like the same equipment, the same medications that, you know, like your OB would use. I feel like that eases a lot of people's minds. And I feel like also just like a little bit of self-doubt is what most people have, which is totally understandable, you know, especially when, you know, going into like a birth, unmedicated.
It's going to be unmedicated
at
100%.
Home, everyone obviously knows it's going to be painful and it might be long. So I feel like just like reassuring people, you know, that they can do it, that their body is capable, reminding them that like they're doing the right things, you know, whether that be having like a doula or taking the childbirth education classes or doing the hypnobirthings, just like reassuring and, you know, being that voice for them of just like, you know, that subtle encouragement throughout pregnancy and then obviously at birth as well. 'Cause it's hard. I just feel like sometimes people just need someone to just remind them like
you got this, girl.
Sometimes people just want to voice like, I'm scared, this is going to be hard, and they just need someone to just be there to tell them like, you got this. You know?
I have a close friend of mine who's really like well versed in like how women communicate and learn and receive love, and it's actually through conversation, which is like so interesting. Like she told me that, and I feel like it just like unlocked, like we were talking more about marriage in that scenario, but I'm like, that makes so much sense even in a midwifery practice. Like if you can actually just talk through these things that are very subconscious, you know, like fears that may have been instilled in you. Like once you actually talk through them, it's like, it's actually not that scary. Maybe I can do it. You just need another woman to like kind of also just chat with you through it. Because even talking to like a man or a husband or a maybe man like OB is like, you know, sometimes maybe not as therapeutic as like kind of just walking through all these things that are like coming up, all the emotions, all the hormones. Like once you get them out there.
Experience that with patients where they just feel like they need to just come in and just talk about it and just voice like maybe a fear that they've had in the back of their mind. And even sometimes they'll say like, I have this fear. I know it's like most likely not going to happen or not anything I actually need to worry about, but I just need to talk about it.
Yeah. Once it's off your chest, it's like out there.
Usually after we've like, you know, talked about it in an appointment, and like had time to just like process that that's something that's in the back of their mind. But like, this is how we'll go about it. And, you know, almost always like at least walk away from that feeling a little bit better and feeling a little bit more confident about it.
That's so important. And I'd say, I think we talked a lot about this with Mandy in that episode, but just, you know, not to bash OBs, but appointments are very short. And that's one thing I've really enjoyed working with midwives is being able to have an hour long where it's like, we're talking about birth and more, you you know, it's like, because then you're building a relationship and you're feeling more comfortable and confident with your provider, rather than just the bare necessity of what you need to know, or just like the testing, blood work, boom, check, you're out.
Yeah.
It's like you're kind of just talking about things that are coming up and fears, and like walking through it more emotionally, which I feel like is really important, and like a super underrated, maybe not talked about enough benefit of working with a midwife. I feel like sometimes people hear like home birth or birth center and they're just only thinking about the birth aspect, but really it's the whole experience is like amazing.
I feel like that too, with having those like hour-long appointments, which is what we do, it makes a huge difference, because especially when you go in with an OB and you have like a super short span of time in those appointments, like you have to almost like prioritize like what you're going to ask or what you're going to talk about.
Right.
Whereas you should, you know, be able to like bring up anything that might be like on your mind or on your heart. Which sometimes you don't have time for if you're just like kind of in and out. And like you said, building the relationship, that's like a huge part of midwifery, and you know how I feel like is so important with like my patients, is being able to like grow those relationships, and just like for, you know, our patients to feel comfortable with like whoever's going to come to their house. We almost want you to feel like it's just like your friend coming over, you know, and like feel safe with that person. And a lot of that is building that trust through, you know, through all of your prenatal appointments.
And I feel like if there's someone listening who they're like just super not into home birth, or maybe it's not accessible to them or something, and they are going to go to a hospital, I feel like that's the importance of having a doula. Because I feel like sometimes people are like, well, I'm going to be in a hospital, I don't need a doula. But like having that constant person there that you have built a relationship around birth specifically. Of course, have your mom there, your sister. Like we've talked about the importance, and like the just like how impactful that can be to have your own women around you, but like having someone there that really knows birth, who's going to be there the whole time, because nurses come on and off shift. You know, certain OBs you may have only seen once for 5 minutes, you know, you might not have like these relationships with. So even like people who are going to birth in a hospital, I think it's important to have someone there to be that like voice of reassurance and like help you out and stuff like that. So, and
like you said, someone who understands birth, is around birth, knows like the ins and outs and all the things, is super important. We love doulas.
I love that.
Doulas are amazing.
So I know there's probably like a lot of myths that come up around like home birth and stuff. I feel like you might have just barely like covered this a little bit, but what's one thing that you hear the most? You know, like I guess you mentioned like, you know, coming prepared and stuff like that. But is there something that you hear that you're just like, why does this keep coming up? That's the craziest myth that you just want to squash in the public view right now.
I feel like it's a big thing, is just that honestly, a lot of people almost mix up like doulas and midwives, and kind of think that we're just showing up and like, you know, catching a baby, and not like bringing all the things with us. And, you know, I feel like that's where a lot of the myths come from, is just that we're not like medical professionals. Because like I said, some people will ask like, what do you bring with you? Like, do you listen to the baby even, you know? And it's like, yes, we are doing the intermittent monitoring, we're bringing like oxygen and IV supplies and medications and all these things with us. So I feel like that's a big like misconception, or at least for people who don't know much about midwives and home birth, that is definitely a thought that a lot of people have, is like,
for sure,
do you even carry like supplies?
I knew you had supplies, but I did ask about like oxygen and like how, like what all do you bring? I don't know, for some reason, like what if I pass out? Like how would you guys handle that? And they're like, we have oxygen, we have everything you could need. I'm just like, wow, okay, this is like making me much more like
we show up like we're moving in with these like huge big bags that we bring, just loaded with stuff.
That's what Mandy said, I think, because I was like, during my consultation, my very first pregnancy, she was like, we pretty much set up everything except the OR at your house.
Literally.
Like, okay, I'm liking this. That's so cool. What is like some of your favorite like comfort measures that you usually offer? Like maybe if a woman's really struggling and she's having trouble listening to her body intuitively, what are some go-to things that you encourage moms to try?
Definitely like the water. Hydrotherapy is a huge one. Obviously we bring the tub with us, but even in those earlier stages, like I like to recommend people like taking a warm shower, taking a warm bath. I feel like just relieving some of the pressure off your belly is super helpful.
Adding different sensations.
So or sometimes like the hot water on your back is really nice. I love a good hip squeeze. I'm a big hip squeezer, or just like counter pressure right down on the middle of your back. I feel like especially too when mamas get close to like pushing and the head is just right there down low, just having some kind of counter pressure against that, or just somewhere to like focus elsewhere other than a baby coming out of you is really helpful. So I definitely, those are like my go-tos, is just hands-on helping, as long as someone likes that.
For sure. Like following their lead with that.
Yeah,
for
following
sure.
their lead. Because
I'm
some
sure
people,
that's like a hard balance.
It is. Some people really want full hands-on and want to be touched and all those things, and some people, you know, want to like be in their little cave and be by themselves and don't even want like their partner touching them, and so then those cases I'm kind of there just as like the verbal encouragement, you know, just being there close to them, letting them know that like you're there, just not like physically, you know, like doing the hip squeezes and you know,
wow,
those kinds of
that's
things.
probably such an interesting balance, like figure out what people like, because they might tell you ahead of time, but it's like when they're in the moment.
It definitely took a minute to be able to like read that with people, and also it just takes like trying, and if they don't like it, they will let you know, and then you know after that,
just like,
you know?
okay, noted.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. And then you also had mentioned that you're really passionate about postpartum, and something I don't think I've talked about a lot on this podcast is like the, just what do they call it, like the miracle hour or something, right? Golden hour. Yeah, golden hour right after, where especially after home birth, where it's like the family's being created in that moment. Like that's something I still crave. I was personally recovering from surgery during my golden hour, so it was not extremely golden. It was in its own way, but like tell me, like walk me through some of that. Like, is that just like the best feeling ever? Like it's done, you're weighing the baby, doing footprints, like
it definitely is like a really light like space. I feel like it's just super happy and joyful and exciting. And yeah, a big thing with like, for me, like importance of postpartum, I just feel like is a lot of times, you know, especially when you're not like with a midwife, no one's really preparing you for what like is to come postpartum. And so I feel like for some people it's like kind of like a shock, you know, what they end up, you know, having to deal with postpartum. Obviously there's going to be like some bleeding, and, you know, we're going to tell you to use like a peri bottle, you know, when you go to the bathroom, these kinds of different things, that people are just like, I wasn't expecting that.
They're so focused on preparing for birth.
So focused on birth.
Now I have a baby and I have to learn all this new stuff.
Postpartum just doesn't even cross your mind. So I like to just like bring it up during pregnancy too. Talk about ways to like prepare for it. We always like let our patients know to start prepping like freezer meals, you know. That's another thing. Like, you know, we don't want you up and like cooking, obviously. Right. So, preparing for that in any way. Sometimes people have like family around them that will like cook them meals. And then for us, just really like respecting that golden hour, respecting like the bonding process. We're obviously still gonna like do the medical things and like check on, you know, mom and baby, but really trying to just like leave that,
keep them close,
undisturbed, keep them close. Almost always baby's just on mom's chest, cord is still connected, you know, during that especially first hour of just them being together and really just soaking in the fact that, you know, they had a baby and their baby's here now, you know.
And the moment you've been looking forward to, it's just crazy. It's such a beautiful moment. I love it. And I love when siblings can be involved. That's something I'm like so looking forward to this time. It's just like, because my daughter, she's only 19 months. She's like a year and a half. She'll barely almost be 2 when we have the baby. And she's already so obsessed with my belly. So she says sissy. She says her name over and over. She wants to kiss my belly. So I actually had this, you know, and I think that's obviously adorable and stuff, but I had this moment of like, she's going to meet her sister. Like, I just can't freaking wait for that.
That is such a sweet moment. Whether they're there or like wake up the next morning. It's almost like a Christmas morning for kids sometimes when they like come home and they're like, oh my gosh, the baby's here. Like,
this is what you've been talking about.
This is my sibling. It's so sweet to witness.
It's tough because my daughter's so young. I'm like trying to describe it to her. I'll say, baby Sissy's gonna come out. Are we gonna hold her? And she'll say no. And I'm like, yeah, we are gonna hold her. And I'm like, are we gonna play with her? She's like, no. I'm like, no, seriously, there's a baby. She's like, I thought you were just talking about your belly. I don't get it. So we'll see. She's still a little young, you know. It's not like she's a 5-year-old where she knows like mommy's gonna have a baby. So well, cool. I feel like this has been really, you know, just awesome because I love that you're like getting in your groove. I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, like getting into the practice, like a fresh perspective, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Because Mandy and Maya, they've been like practicing for 5 years. So they like have
like
all this.
Midwives.
Yeah, exactly. I like having like the fresh perspective. You're like, I don't know, just like surprised and excited about all of it, which of course they probably are too, but it's fun to hear like that freshness. So if you had just one piece of advice to tell any pregnant mamas, or even people, maybe they're not pregnant, but they're just like thinking about birth and in the future, what's like one piece of advice or thing you would tell them?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard one. Picking like one. Well, my big one is, like I talked about earlier, like trusting your body. But also, you know, not to have too much like expectation around birth, just like remembering that each person's birth is going to be like unique. Yeah. Birth is very unpredictable. But we see a lot on, you know, social media, watch like birth videos, which is awesome. But I feel like a lot of social media doesn't really show all birth. Like sometimes birth isn't just like quiet and in the tub and, you know, easy and like no complications. Like sometimes things do come up, or, you know, sometimes we have to get you out of the tub and it might look different than what, you know, you like had in mind. So I feel like just remembering to like go into it with, you know, an open mind and not a specific expectation is really helpful for people. Because when it maybe doesn't go like the exact way that you planned, it can be really hard to almost like process that and 100%. Like accept it. So yeah, I feel like I would tell people that, just to go in open-minded, go in, you know, knowing that your birth is going to be unique to yourself. And that is like the beautiful part about it. It's going to be different for everyone. But like your personal journey is like how you brought your own baby into the world, you know, and it's going to be special and amazing, you know, no matter what, and in its own way.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for saying that, because that's something that when God put this podcast on my heart, I'm like, you know, the whole podcast won't be about like my insane birth, but also I think it should be talked about more.
Absolutely.
That, like, things shift a lot sometimes, and I just want to have those conversations, you know, and it's like still beautiful, and I want to like help moms who walked through that acknowledge it and like be okay with like how that went. Definitely. You know, so because trying to walk through and process, even like you said, there's a mom, I went to her birth story at a mom group, and she had a beautiful home birth, you know, but there were parts of it that, again, like you mentioned, looked super different, and like things came up that she was not expecting, or whether you tear, or, you know, things like it's not always super pretty, you know, like it's not the twinkly lights in the Instagram post. And I feel like it's such a hard balance, because, you know, you want to envision your perfect birth, and they'd say like visualize it and, you know, all of this, but then it pivots and you have to be like also open to that and like prepared for that too. So I don't know, how do you sorry, I'm diving into another question, but like how do you help women kind of like prepare for both, like prepare and expect the best while also like knowing things can change and like being prepared for that too?
It's definitely a hard balance, because we do want people to like envision what they want from birth, and like obviously people have like different things in mind, like you said, like the twinkle lights, and some people like to like hang up affirmations and things like that. So I definitely tell people to do that, to like start thinking about their birth space and thinking about things that they want out of their birth, but then to also talk about, you know, transfers happen and these kinds of things can, you know, occur during your birth. So I feel like just talking about it and like bringing it up is really helpful. Like our birth class that we do at 37 weeks usually touches on a little bit of that as well, like what that might look like. So really just like preparing your mind for the alternatives that can happen and the different ways that birth can go. Not saying that will happen at every single birth, but just knowing that these things can come up. Birth isn't like perfect every single time. Sometimes you might go in and not wanting any cervical checks. And sometimes we might need a little bit more information. Even if that's like not our norm or not what you kind of like expect. Just like knowing that there's other paths. Sometimes. Yeah, there's exceptions. There's, you know, things that will come up that you don't think about ahead of time. So I feel like for us, just as midwives, just talking about it, bringing it up, making sure people just are aware of things that, you know, could happen at their birth. Yeah, I think I mentioned this maybe in my episode with Olivia, but I read the book Birth Without Fear. And I remember I almost skipped the chapter about C-sections, because I'm like, well,
I don't need to know that. But, and also being a nurse, like I've actually been in the OR, like supporting friends and family members of mine who've had, you know, C-sections. So I'm like, well, I don't want to think about that in regards to my birth, but I listened to it and I'm like, so glad I did. That's actually what ended up specifically happening to me. And there were like little pieces of things she mentioned that I did remember when I was going through a transfer and some of these crazy things. And if you haven't listened to my birth story, we're totally recorded. We did like a whole 2-part, it's like 2 hours of like everything that happened with my birth. Cause I'm like, I know I'm going to mention it throughout other episodes. So people should be like, what the heck happened? But yeah, no, I'm really glad I listened to that chapter. So I think it's like, okay to like let your mind go there. I think, because there is a lot of, you know, like encouraging like visualization and stuff, that it's almost like the positive thinking mindset of like, don't think about it or it'll happen. And that's kind of almost why I didn't want to listen to that chapter. Cause I'm like, I don't even want to go there. But it's like, there might be tools and resources that you could even apply to your vaginal birth, like a mindset, right? You know, or a tip she had that was in that chapter or in that someone's experience. That ends up being helpful to you. So I think it's important to have those conversations. And again, like we were talking about, like talking all the way through it, talking about like what that fear would look like if it came up and started happening, you know. I think that's a major key. So yeah, you're an amazing midwife. I'm so blessed to know you, and you're my midwife, one of them. Know. It's kind of like the best Russian roulette ever. Who's going to show up? Right. When I was hiring my birth photographer last time, she even said, she's like, it's going to feel like a birth party. Like all of your like friends, that's totally how it feels. So
and that's like what we wanted to feel like too, is like a fun time. Like your midwife is showing up and you're excited to see them and you're excited to have these people. Yeah, it's a birthday party. Literally. Yeah, it actually literally especially when you have a team with like a photographer and a doula and your midwife. It's the best. Yeah, so cool. Well, it's been a blessing getting to know you more, and I think I literally actually even have an appointment coming up with you.
Yes,
like, I'm so excited.
So we'll get to chat more about my personal journey, and we'll just see what happens over the next whatever it is 12 weeks. And so I really appreciate you being amazing, not only for me but for all the women in our community that you serve. It's a really beautiful work that you do, you know, like investing in women and helping them walk through some of the most vulnerable, you know, times of their life. So, thanks for taking the time. Thank you for having me. For sure. It was a huge blessing to have you here, and follow us on Instagram, Our Virtual Village, so that you can just stay up to date with content. I pray that this adds a lot of value to whoever's listening. So catch you next time.